if you're an avid consumer of luxury content, you might have noticed a significant uptake in discussions around this idea of luxury being a scam. That is an extremely trendy phrase that I have been seeing around, not to mention all the discussions of people deciding not to buy luxury anymore, and some people even taking it a step further by claiming that they will sell their luxury collections. And I didn't really feel that this trend warranted a dedicated video, considering that it's something I have been talking about for years. I made a conscious decision a couple of years ago to cut back on my luxury spending, and it's something that has made me incredibly happy. But since I keep getting sent the same videos, I thought it might be something that you would like to have a discussion about. So I watched some of these videos, and these are my observations and opinions. We are not here to invalidate anyone's experiences. I'm purely here to share with you what I think and what my experience has been like, and why I think splurging on luxury is not nearly as trendy, as popular, and as beloved as it once was. So if you'd like to hear my thoughts on the future of luxury fashion and luxury consumption, then make sure to give this video a thumbs up. Subscribe down below if you haven't done so yet, and keep on watching. Luxury shopping isn't the only thing I've got back on. Another thing that I try not to consume quite as much of is social media, Instagram in particular. Just because I have so much on my plate, I felt like something had to give, and the easiest thing for me to deprioritize was how much time I spent scrolling on Instagram. Now, this does not mean that I will stop creating content for Instagram. That is something that I definitely want to get back to. But at this point, I try not to spend more than 2 minutes on Instagram a day. And when I say 2 minutes, I actually mean it. I actually track my screen time, and I try to limit my Instagram use to 2 minutes a day. Now, the reason I'm pointing it out here is because even with the limited amount of time that I spend on social media, even I have noticed all this conversation that's going on about luxury being a scam and people getting rid of their luxury collections. Now, two videos that have been incredibly popular and two videos that I keep getting sent asking for my feedback on are one by Lydia Millen and one by Sophie Chohat, two incredible British luxury creators. Both of them I have been aware of for years, but I don't really consume their videos that regularly just because this is what I do weekly. So I don't want to also think and talk about luxury in my spare time, but they both create amazing content, and I will make sure to have their videos linked down below for you, even though you have probably seen their videos. And even if you have not seen them firsthand, I'm sure you've seen some of your favorite creators react to their videos, because there have been so many conversations about what they said in their videos and this whole idea of luxury de-influencing and people no longer spending money on luxury, and even taking it a step further by selling their luxury collections, which is what Lydia Millen talked about in her video. So I wanted to share with you my thoughts on some of the points that they made in their videos and my personal experience, and how I can relate to some of the points, and how I personally not necessarily disagree with them, but things that I do differently in my personal life. Now, again, we're not here to invalidate anyone's experiences. That is their reality, and this is mine, and it is perfectly fine to agree to disagree. But one of the points that they both make in their videos is that they have noticed a significant shift in their lifestyle, and this feeling of luxury not really fitting into their everydays, which is something that I can very much relate to. In fact, I did a video a couple of months ago on why I stopped luxury shopping and why I think luxury consumption is on a decline. And one of the things that I said is that my life has also changed significantly. I no longer go to places that often that require for me to dress up. At this point, all I do is go to school, work from home, hang out with my dog Pi, take him on walks, and I go to the gym. That's pretty much it. And this is just on a constant repeat. So I don't really have places to wear my outfits to, not to mention that I also moved from New York to Amsterdam, and in Amsterdam there isn't this there isn't that much of a culture of people dressing up and using fashion as a form of self-expression. Whereas in New York, I would have worn designer pieces to the grocery store. I no longer do that in Amsterdam, not only because of the culture here or the culture that I experienced, but also because of having Pi, because I have to walk him multiple times a day. I'm not going to be walking him in a full-on tailored outfit or something extremely expensive because he is a lab, which means that he sheds like you've never seen it before. So all of my black pieces were covered in his hair. So instead of me constantly changing and getting from my sweats into my formal looks and then going back and forth all day because he does have to go out multiple times, I just chose to simply wear things that are more appropriate for my lifestyle. Now, if my life was changed, if I got a corporate job, or if maybe I moved, perhaps my life would shift again. But at this point, my lifestyle doesn't really suit luxury pieces. And personally, when it comes to how I spend my money and what I can justify spending my money on, I can only buy something incredibly expensive if I know it's something I will get use out of. I'm not a traditional collector. Owning things personally does not bring me joy. For me, spending money on things that will just sit in my wardrobe or in a drawer collecting dust really does not bring me joy. I would much rather put my money towards things that I can get regular use and joy out of. And luxury at this point is just not something that I can. And I think that is one thing that both ladies mentioned in their own videos. Not to mention that I feel like a lot of people will buy luxury to fit not only their actual lifestyle, but this over glamorized way of living. A good example of that I always talk about is luxury travel accessories. So luxury suitcases, luxury trunks, not trunks that you would use around your home, but you would use for actually traveling, or even buying things like the HAC, which in theory sound extremely glamorous, to roll up to the airport with your Louis Vuitton carry-on and your HAC. Yes, I love the idea of it, but are they actually practical pieces to have in your life, or they will just end up causing more headache than how much benefit they would add to your life? Because when it comes to things like the HAC, as beautiful as they look, they are definitely not a practical bag to travel with. Sure, if you exclusively fly private, or if you have someone who carries your bags around, so if you fly Le Premier with Air France, for example, and you have someone who accompanies you through the airport, of course, they are great things to have around because they're beautiful to look at and you don't have to deal with the weight of these bags. But if you're carrying your own luggages, which I assume is the case for most of us out there, they're really not the best thing to spend your hard-earned money on, because you will not get that much joy out of the experience of using them. The same thing goes for extremely expensive suitcases that you have to worry about constantly, because the last thing you need is an additional layer of anxiety when you already have so much to pay attention to at an airport and while traveling. So it's also important to consider what your actual lifestyle is like and what pieces you can integrate into that lifestyle. Because one thing that I feel like has been forgotten is that luxury bags in particular, so Birkins, Kellys, Constances, they're really things that you don't just pay for once. Yes, you might be able to afford a Birkin or a Kelly, but can you also afford the lifestyle that comes with these pieces? Because I always say this, something that has been on my wish list for many years is a Birkin 35 in matte alligator or matte croc. It is quite rare to find a larger Birkin in alligator, so I would probably have to opt for a larger Birkin in croc. But my dream would be to find a large Birkin, a Birkin 35 in matte black alligator. And while I've had the chance to buy it, and maybe I could have also even afforded to buy this bag once, something that I always had to remind myself of is how comfortable I would feel if I had to replace that piece. Because it's fine that I can buy that bag once, but if God forbid something happened to it, would I be able to buy it again? Would I have the peace of mind knowing that if I had this piece in my collection, I would be able to carry it comfortably, knowing that it's something that is replaceable? or would it cause me more anxiety than joy? Because when it comes to a bag that's incredibly expensive, and we can talk about an exotic piece or even a Birkin in regular leather, the pricing here is insane. And these are not usually pieces that you want to just use willy-nilly. These are things that you most likely want to pay attention to, you want to be careful with, you want to make sure that you only use them in situations where you feel safe pulling these bags out, and safety is another point that we'll move on to in just a minute. But these are things that you want to be careful with. For most people, spending $10, $15, $20,000 on a bag is a huge investment, so you want to be careful with your investments. And if you don't have the lifestyle where you drive everywhere, where you only go from a car to the main entrance, go straight into the restaurant, or go straight into your office, but there are errands you're running and there are multiple things you have going on, these pieces might not be the most practical items to have in your collection. Sure, if you live a life of leisure, these things will really suit you. If you are really not conscientious with your pieces and you don't mind seeing scratches, dents, and marks on them, that's a completely different story. Because while yes, these bags are exquisitely made and you don't have to worry about the overall integrity of these bags, you know that they will last. I personally find it heartbreaking when I have something that I spent thousands and thousands of dollars on that gets scratched, marked, and dented, even though it is the name of the game. Personally, it's just not something that I like seeing. So it's something that you also have to consider. Are these pieces actually suitable for your lifestyle? And can you also bear the idea of replacing them? This is how I always look at my spending. Not that I ever lose anything or anything ever happens. I'm extremely careful with my pieces. But if I know it's not something that I could easily replace, it is something that I will definitely spend a little bit more time thinking about. And another point that both videos mentioned is this idea of safety. Now, personally, I have been incredibly careful with my luxury collection. I don't even keep the majority of my pieces at home for two reasons. Number one, again, is safety. Even though I live in a building with 24-hour security, I still am extremely careful with my pieces, and I have been for years. And then the second reason is that I no longer carry these pieces on a regular basis. But again, here is just another example to prove my point that you're not only paying for these pieces once, but you will have to continue keeping up this lifestyle that comes along with luxury pieces. Because yes, I bought these pieces and now I'm having to pay not only insurance for having these pieces, but also I have to pay for a storage unit where I can store them. I keep them at an extremely secure facility underground. So that is something that costs me quite a bit of money on a monthly basis, which again is an additional expense that I would not have had I not spent all this money on these luxury bags. And you know, these are pieces that I review, I make videos on, I have a lot of passion for the artistry that goes into these pieces, so I am willing to pay the price, but it might not be a price that you're willing to pay if you don't really have a need or a true passion for these pieces. Not that you need any of these things, but if these things you're just buying thinking, you know, I can afford to buy them once, why wouldn't I? Well, you could have spent this money on something that would have not been quite as tasking, and you might be thinking you're way overthinking this. Why don't you just go into a store, spend your money in a bag, and then go ahead and enjoy it? That's definitely one way of going about it. I very much enjoy some of the pieces that I have, but once I have built up access, I realized that it's actually more effort than I thought. Not to mention that when I spend a lot of money on something, I want to make sure that my money is in a safe place. It is not something that I am frivolous about. And then again, I think that's the big majority of us. A lot of people will think that, and I'm not talking about myself here, but a lot of people will think that, oh, if you can afford these pieces, you probably don't care about money. But I can tell you from personal experience that those people that I know who are extremely comfortable in their lives, they still care about money and they still want to make sure that their money is well taken care of, and things that they put a lot of money and effort into will last a long time. So it's not like just because you can afford these pieces, you will not care about how they wear and how they last. Maybe if you have a lot of money and for you $10,000 is really just some loose change, it will be different. But again, that's not the big majority of luxury consumers. So again, when you buy luxury, it is something that you will have to continue paying for. You cannot just take public transport. You'll probably have to take an Uber or drive yourself. You probably have to go to places where you feel comfortable using your items, which is not as common as it used to be, again because of the safety concerns. And these things also come with additional responsibilities like having insurance on your pieces, and considering you might have to consider taking out a vault or a secure storage location where you can keep these pieces if you don't feel comfortable keeping hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of pieces in your apartment. Not to mention that in a lot of cases there is a limit to how much insurance you can take out depending on where you live for individual pieces, if you don't have certain alarm systems or if you don't live on a certain floor. So there is a lot more that goes into it than you would think. Now, safety concerns again is something that both videos mentioned. We know that the world is becoming more and more unstable and more unsafe, and I really don't think that is something that should be taken lightly. I saw a lot of people criticizing these creators, saying that, I live in London or I live here and I don't mind wearing my luxury pieces. Well, let's be honest here. We are talking about two creators here who are both women. We know that women are twice as likely to suffer from anxiety as men, and there are many contributing factors, culture being one of them. So for example, parents are 4 times more likely to tell their girls to be careful than they are to tell boys. So we should never invalidate anyone's, but especially not women's, feelings of being unsafe. And both of these creators happen to live in London. Now, to me, this was a huge shock when I was in London last time, how common petty theft has become and how petty crime is running rampant. It's really not something that I would have ever thought of, because when I think of London, and London is a place that I love visiting, I used to go quite frequently, and I never thought of London as a particularly scary or unsafe place. But I have friends who lived in London who could not stop getting people from breaking into their car, even though they lived in one of the nicest neighborhoods. I had people get their phones and their cameras stolen in daylight on the street. It's really insane how unsafe some of these larger cities have become. And when it comes to brands, especially things like the Birkin and Kelly's, they have become a lot more known and a lot more widely recognized. Because if you think back, even when I first started doing YouTube, I'm not saying that Birkins and Kellys were not a thing. Of course, a lot of people knew about them, but they were a little bit more for those who were in the know. They were some of those pieces that if you knew, you knew. And of course, traditional media like movies and TV shows have added to the lore of these creations, like the iconic line in Sex and the City, "This is not a bag, this is a Birkin." All of these things started making these bags and these items more popular, but at this point they are so extremely well recognized, largely due to social media, that everyone knows what they are and how much they are worth. Not to mention that they have a way of selling them, because back in the day, of course, you had secondary sellers and private sellers that worked on reselling items. At this point, the secondary market is booming. You don't even have to go into a store to get rid of some of these pieces. You can just sell them online, and there are so many different auction houses and pre-love sites that specialize in selling pieces that it really only takes a couple of seconds of research for you to find out how much these bags are worth and how much money you could make off of selling one of these things. So these bags themselves are not only more well known, but so is their value and how you can potentially sell them, which I can imagine makes a lot of people feel quite unsafe carrying these bags. In fact, I have friends who live in larger cities who have to carry a canvas tote bag inside their Birkins and Kellys. And the reason these are the two bags that I'm talking about is because, of course, Hermes is the brand that I am most familiar with, and you probably come to me for advice on. But it goes for every other luxury bag. But of course, Birkins and Kellys are the epitome and the definition of luxury at this point, and you cannot go on social media without seeing a couple of these bags around. They have really taken off on social media, and while they again have been around for decades and they are nothing new for those of us who consume luxury, they are kind of a new concept and a new invention for those who are just breaking into and being exposed to the world of luxury for the first time, and that is the big majority of people because of social media. Anyway, I know a lot of my friends at this point carry canvas tote bags and paper bags inside their bags. So if they go to a particularly busy neighborhood, or if they're walking down the street late in the evening, they can just put their bags in one of these ambiguous tote bags, which to me is just insane. Why would you want to spend so much money on a piece when you don't even get to enjoy it? And when I say insane, I'm not talking about their behavior, but simply the fact that at this point people cannot feel safe carrying their own possessions. So again, this is another thing that just kind of defeats the purpose of luxury. It's something that should bring you joy. It's something that should bring a smile to your face and not a frown. I can tell you, as someone who does this for a living, I mean, I could not even count on two hands how many unboxings I've done. It's really not quite as popular as it once was, not only when it comes to the viewership of unboxings, but also how thrilled I am about doing them. And that's not because we no longer see unboxings. In fact, that is the very reason I don't think they are quite as popular as they once were, because of how often we are exposed to unboxings. I think at one point this whole culture of unboxing was so thrilling to be able to reveal something new, but I definitely think that it has diminished as we become more and more skeptical about lavish spending and how often we've seen them. So when it comes to these creators, they might have also noticed that, I've been doing, and this is just my assumption here, they might have noticed that, I keep doing these unboxings and they really don't bring me as much joy as they did in the past, and they no longer bring in the views as they did before. And that's perhaps because people are becoming skeptical when it comes to luxury spending because of the state of the economy. People no longer want to spend money on these pieces, so why would they want to watch someone else doing it? Because yes, some people will enjoy watching luxury unboxings to live vicariously through someone, but other people will find it frustrating seeing these people spending thousands and thousands of dollars when it's not something that they could or they would feel comfortable with doing. So I definitely think that viewership when it comes to just pure, extremely excessive, lavish unboxing has declined in the past couple of years, and perhaps that also meant to them that if it's not something that's really speaking to me at this point, why would I continue doing it? And I'm not saying that no one does luxury unboxings at this point. I still do them every now and again, but definitely not at the rate that I used to. And I don't see quite as many dedicated channels to excessive luxury unboxings as we did in the past. And I really don't. I think there was a big shift during 2020 when it came to keeping up with the Joneses. I mean, I personally don't even know who the Joneses are at this point, but I think our values and our priorities definitely shifted during 2020. A lot of us continued buying luxury, but it wasn't something that really filled a void, or that was something that really brought us as much joy. I would love to hear your experience on that. Did you see a big shift in your luxury spending? And if you are seeing that, was it more recent? Do you think it started in 2020? Because that's when I first really started noticing people still buying luxury, but slowly moving away from it or becoming more critical to it. And that is very normal for all of us to change and go through an evolution and change how we want to express ourselves and what we want to invest our time and money into. So there is nothing wrong with that, but it is something that should be respected from both ends. People should let you be who you want to be and express yourself how you want to, as long as you're not hurting anyone around you. But we should also let other people exit our lives whenever they please, because it's fine for someone not to want to embrace your change and your journey, and they have the choice to then go on their own merry way and not be part of the new journey that you are embarking on. But what I think has happened here, especially because of social media, is that we live in these echo chambers. Obviously, social media algorithms are designed to confirm your own beliefs and your own value system. So if social media platforms start seeing that you engage with one type of content and one type of value system, it will continue serving you content that confirms that and that is built upon the same values that you have, just to keep you on their platforms longer. And that creates this echo chamber where you are constantly seeing and hearing things that you want to hear. You're basically surrounded by virtual yes people, and we are not really used to just accepting opposing opinions, or not even opposing, but opinions that are not identical to ours. And when it comes to this conversation of luxury or buying luxury or not buying luxury, I think a lot of people almost feel that they are being judged. If they're watching someone who no longer buys luxury, they feel like that they are being judged and they are being made feel inferior if they are choosing to buy luxury. Or if there is someone out there who still promotes buying luxury, they will feel like that because they choose not to buy luxury, that person should feel the same way. But we cannot all have the same thoughts, the same opinions, and the same behavior. That would create an extremely boring world to live in if we were all identical. So it is perfectly fine for you to want to buy luxury and for someone else not to, and vice versa. Just because someone stopped buying luxury, that doesn't make you a worse person because you are choosing to continue consuming luxury. And it also goes the other way around. So it's really not something that should be an argument or a debate. If anything, it should just be a discussion, and there is so much that we can learn from each other. Not to mention that at this point, there are so many other alternatives. Also, because of all these price increases, there is another price increase coming. I think Hermes is planning on a 15% price increase because of the tariffs in the US. Don't quote me on that. I do not want to start any rumors, but if I'm not mistaken, there is a discussion going on about Hermes increasing their prices across the board by 15%. So that is just an example. And of course, price increases are not a new idea. They have been running crazy with them for the past few years, which meant that a lot of people were excluded and priced out of buying luxury. So luxury brands, for them, it's fine to continue pursuing the ultra wealthy who really don't care about the difference between, or not that they don't care, but it doesn't make as much of a difference. It doesn't make as much of a dent when it comes to the price difference of, let's say, $1,000. Fast fashion is, of course, dominating the budget market, but there was a point in time when there wasn't really anything available in between, or the things that you had available were just not that great. But thankfully, at this point, there are so many incredible contemporary brand and even dupe brands that are able to offer high quality but less expensive alternative, less expensive than traditional luxury houses, but more expensive and higher quality than fast fashion brands that offer options for those who are looking for great quality investment pieces, but investment that will not break the bank. And I did mention the word dupe culture because, of course, dupes are becoming more and more accepted. And that's not just in the luxury fashion industry. I think it was a big debate in the beauty space a couple of years ago when dupes really started popping up. And we know that the generations that are coming up now are a lot more they're a lot more accepting of this duping culture. Now, we have just done a video on super fakes and this whole allegation of Chinese manufacturer claiming that a lot of the luxury brands are produced in China, contrary to the claims made by the brands, which I will make sure to have it linked up here for you. We talked about super fakes and dupes, and I do think that super fakes are also a reason these extremely expensive high-end luxury bags are so unsafe to carry, because there are so many fakes around. People are more aware of what they are, just because the more you're exposed to them, the more you will know about them. But anyway, we have already discussed that point, so I don't want to go back to that. But obviously, super fakes are, again, another point, and we discussed my thoughts on fakes and buying fakes. So if you're interested in hearing my thoughts on that topic, I will make sure to have that video linked up here for you. But there's one thing for sure, luxury is not going anywhere. And to answer the big question, is luxury a scam? is luxury worth the money? I do think that it is worth it as long as it adds value to your life. Is it the best thing that's happened since sliced bread? Is it the most incredible life-changing thing? Let me tell you that it's not. Yes, luxury pieces can be beautiful. They can be incredibly crafted. They can make you look and feel like $1,000,000, but that feeling will not last long. I can tell you that having these pieces and chasing these pieces, if you are just trying to use these pieces to fill a void, they will not make you feel any better. They might make you feel good for a couple of seconds, but they will definitely not define your worth as a person. I don't think they should be underestimated. I don't think they should be seen as frivolous if you genuinely get joy and value out of them. And not every single luxury piece is a scam. Some of them are worth the money as long as it is worth it for you. But let's not live under the false pretense that these pieces are actually justified in terms of their cost. I talked about this in my last video. A Birkin or Kelly, they might be crafted like a piece of art. They might be made of the most exquisite materials. They are not crafted by some demigod. They are, yes, incredible creations, but I can tell you that they don't cost nearly as much to make as how much they will charge you for them. But you have to decide if it's worth it for you, because you will be paying a lot of money for the luxury experience, for the status symbol, for the branding, and for you to get maybe a glass of water as you're buying a bag. So it really just comes down to your priorities and what's important for you. But I think it doesn't matter which way you go, whether you choose to buy luxury or choose not to. At the end of the day, it really comes down to your personal preference that we need to respect, but we can have an open conversation about it. And I really hope that you got something out of today's video. If you did, please make sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't done so yet. I really appreciate you being here and watching, and I cannot wait to see you back here with a new video really, really soon.